Good evening. Welcome to DK Live podcast, real estate podcast. And today we're going to be touching some current important topics of real estate. And you are watching this one live from our New York studio. And uh, before going into the details, I'm going to just give you a little bit background about if you are watching this one from the Facebook and YouTube live. If you are watching in the Facebook, you need to make sure you go streamyard.com/Facebook. Just accept over there, because if you make any comment, I cannot show that comment your name over here. So just a little bit information for you as audience. And this is a participatory podcast, so feel free to ask any questions you have regarding our discussion today. And today, let's go back to the straight to the topic: real estate, real time real estate. And today, I have one of the very renowned person, and his name is Mr. Hartman. And how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you, Deloar?
Good. I'm good. I'm very excited to have you in my studio today. And let me just talk to you a little bit about whoever they don't know about you. Mr. Dean is 40 years veteran of mortgage and industry, and he has worked very closely as a coach and mentor to many top real estate agents for decades. And believe me or not, he is one of my mentors as well. Yes, and he is an amazing mentor, and I'm really appreciative for that. And he's considered as innovator and thought leader on financing and the real estate market.
Oh, thank you for the
So
kind words.
yes, Dean, did I say everything good words or anything I missed it
No,
about you?
I think you got everything. I'm just hoping my family's listening so that they think I'm as smart as you do.
All right. So we're gonna be touching some important aspects of real estate today. So there have been actually some tremendous shift in the real estate market and lending world recently happening, right? So we're gonna be touching all those things because so many of our clients, buyers, sellers, they are actually not very clear about the things in the newspaper is happening. All the news is coming, and people are actually, I asked so many questions with some of my past clients, sellers, buyers. They're actually not very clear. So our today's focus will be two main topic is in the real estate changes suddenly recently happening. One of them is property condition disclosure, and second one is NAR settlement. So let's talk about the property condition disclosure, and what is the changes about the property condition disclosure, and what is the property condition disclosure actually it was, and then what is the changes. Let's talk about that.
Okay, so up until March 20th of this year, uh, sellers and buyers had like an understanding in New York State where sellers would give a credit to the buyer at closing of $500, and basically they were absolved of any problems in the house that came up after closing. So if the oil burner broke a week after closing, or a roof got a hole in it a month later, sellers were off the hook because they already gave a credit to the buyer for the $500, right? So life was simple then. Now, sellers have to fill out this 3-page form. They no longer can just give a credit. They have to make representations about the house, which means that the liability of problems in the house could continue post closing if it's not disclosed on the form. So, again, it's 3 pages. It's about the heating system, it's about the roof, the walls, the appliances, a whole bunch of things about the condition of the property. Um, Most sellers don't know everything about their house. And so I think initially the government thought the real estate agent was going to help them fill out the form as they were going through the house. And then all the attorneys on the real estate company said, "Are you crazy? Why do we want to take liability on about a house that we don't live in and we don't know the answers to?" So, what real estate agents have been instructed to do, and I'm sure you've been instructed to do, is to
Yeah.
take the form and give it to the seller and tell them, "You got to fill this out." You might want to consult your attorney as you fill it out. And now attorneys are getting this form, and the attorney's never been in the house. They've never seen the house. They don't have the warranties of the appliances. Like, the attorneys don't want to get involved in this either. So the seller is pretty much on their own. And as long as they're truthful and disclose everything, they have no liability. And so they say it's $500. But if they didn't know something, or they didn't mention the mold that was in the corner in the basement on the bottom, they now could be sued by the buyer months after closing. So it's not good news or bad news. It's just the news, and people need to be aware of it. Now, one of the home inspectors that we both know and do business with has rolled out a new program where he will do a pre-inspection on the house on behalf of the seller and basically charge them the same $500 they were giving up a month ago. And then he will fill out the form with all the details about the house, you know, on behalf of the seller. He's not going to fill out the form for the seller. He's not going to sign the form for the seller, but he's going to put the seller in the best position to protect themselves. And this form is now being, exchanged as you're going to contract. So it's not like you can really hide any defects. It's going to be complete and open disclosure and transparency now.
Okay, so when inspector goes over there, he's gonna give home seller all the little details, but home seller is still has to fill it up and submit it, correct?
Correct. And they are still technically liable if there's a mistake in it. But they're at least getting a professional to examine the house, not like, I don't know anything. In my house, if I didn't have my wife, and a fuse blows, I'd be in the dark for a month. So I could never fill this out on my house, right? I would have to hire somebody to come and do it on my behalf. And since the agents are being instructed they can't do it or they shouldn't do it, the attorneys are shying away from doing it, the seller is probably going to have to go hire a professional to help them or take on the risk themselves.
Okay, excellent. So, okay, we understand the property condition disclosure. Let's go to the second topic, and that one is the NAR settlement. Actually, the National Association of Realtors settlement. So, a lot of news is on the news right now, and let's go. I'm gonna break it down a little bit. Let's go first. What is the lawsuit actually? What is the history? Just give me like a 1 minute explanation.
Okay. The history is really born out of probably just bad communication. A group of sellers in Missouri filed a class action lawsuit against the selling agents on their house because they felt that agent didn't properly disclose to them that they were actually paying the real estate agent that represented their buyer, right? That NAR had a rule that's called cooperating commission, where somebody would list their house for 4%, 5%, 6%, and then the agent who listed the house would offer out half of it or some other negotiated amount to all the other agents to say, bring us your buyers. And that's the way real estate has been done in America for 100 years. The sellers, or really the lawyers for the sellers, said nobody should expect you to pay for the person who's negotiating for the other side of this transaction. And that's not right. We could argue whether that's right or wrong, but that was the basic lawsuit. The In my opinion, the National Association of Realtors didn't take it that seriously, and they didn't really put up a really good defense for it, and they lost the lawsuit. And the jury awarded the sellers a total of $1.8 billion in
Wow.
damages. And because they were a class, they get what's called treble damages, which is 3 times the award, which means the total lawsuit represented $5.4 billion. Okay,
Wow.
it was on behalf of sellers, and it was only in the state of Missouri. Since then, a dozen other lawsuits have popped up in other states, and NAR and the big real estate companies realized we're dead. We have to settle these things. So NAR settled their portion of it on behalf of all of the agents in the country and all the companies in the country that did less than $2 billion in real estate. NAR agreed to really 3 things. One is they're going to pay $418 million over the next 3 years.
Okay, okay, hold on, Dean. I have a question. So I'm surprised. Why did not settle if they know they were right? Why they settle not appeal?
Well, what we've learned in New York over the Donald Trump lawsuit, where he got penalized $500 million, in order to appeal the judgment, you have to put up a certain amount of money. Whether
Security
it's
money, security
all
money.
of it or whatever else. NAR's estimate was at minimum they'd be putting up 20% of the money, which is $1 billion. They didn't
Wow.
have $1 billion, so
Mm.
they couldn't do it. And even if they could, it wouldn't have stopped all the other lawsuits from going on. So
Mhm.
by settling, they basically lumped all the seller-based lawsuits under this one settlement, and they bit the bullet and said we got to pay $400 million. I'm sorry, over the
Mhm.
next few years. And so whether they had any other options or that was they really, I think they messed it up by not making a better case in the beginning. It's a lawsuit they should not have lost. And really, it's not anything that's benefiting the consumer because even after all these settlements, it's estimated that each of the sellers who are the wronged parties are going to get checks for like $21 to $24. But the law firm that put the lawsuit is in line for $280 million, right? So it really was merely a money grab by the lawyers more than anything else. But beyond the money, NAR
Yeah.
agreed
So
to
let's
make changes in the
yeah.
industry.
So let's talk about with this settlement. What I think there is a two major changes. What are the two major changes happening, and how does it impact in our business as a, like a if somebody want to sell house or somebody want to buy house?
Okay, so there's really one change that affects buyers and one that really affects sellers. Even though they both are affected by both, one's directed one way, one's the other. On the buyer's behalf, buyers beginning mid-July will have to be if they're going to choose to be represented, will have to sign an agreement with a real estate agent. They could choose to go in the same way you could sell your house without a realtor, right? Via FISBO. Buyers will be allowed to go out and shop for homes without paying a real estate agent. I don't know how successful they're going to be. That's a much
That's
longer
interesting.
conversation. But the world is going to change in that buyers have to sign this agreement before they even go to look at a house. So they're going to have to pick an agent that they're comfortable with without ever really working with that agent. So whether that's by referral or they've seen them on social media and they feel comfortable with them or whatever else, they're going to be signing buyer's agency agreements with the agent they're working with. Now, it's still undetermined, and it will probably be different in every state, what type of agreement they sign, whether it's on a house-by-house basis. So if I show you this house and you want to buy it, I got to get paid. But if you go buy another house and I didn't show it to you, I won't get paid. That's possible. It may be that you're going to sign an agreement exclusively with me. So whatever house you go to see, I'm going to be the one taking you and showing you. Or it might be hey, I want to buy in Nassau County, but if I find a good house in Suffolk County, and maybe you think your agent is not great in both places, that you want a local expert, will you be able to sign agreements with many agents to cover the different geographical areas, right? I've always maintained I wouldn't hire an agent who couldn't tell me what the best pizza place was in the neighborhood I was buying. Because if they don't really know what it's like to live there, what am I paying them for? And because buyers have historically not written a check, the agreement says if the seller isn't willing to pay me, the buyer is responsible for the money. And so if you're going to sign an agent and let's say agree to pay them 2%, or, as an example, on your $600,000 house, you're paying them $12,000. So what's going to determine if an agent is worth $12,000 to a buyer? That's the challenge from an agent point of view. Right?
Yeah, but the question is, some of the first-time home buyer, they don't even have the closing cost money. How they can come out with this money? Is there any ways, direction?
It's going to be different, and that's where the second change comes in. Right up until now, you could take a listing and the seller would agree, I'll pay you 5%. And as the listing agent, you could say, I'm going to keep 3% for myself, and I'm willing to offer 2% to anybody who brings me a buyer. And the way it was communicated was through the MLS, right? The multiple listing services where agents let that information be known, right? Mm-hmm. That was called the cooperating commission agreement that was, prevalent in the industry. Now, the second change due to the settlement is agents can't post that information on the MLS.
Okay.
They're not being precluded from sharing, but they are being precluded from posting it in a centralized location because the argument on the lawyer's side is agents are only showing houses that they got paid the most money on. And buyers didn't even really know that it was built into the sales price of the house, and they were indirectly paying these agents, and they didn't know how much they were making. Don't know if that argument is right or not, but I do know there were plenty of examples of agents saying to buyers, listen, you don't even pay me, the seller pays me. That technically was never true. It was being added into the price of the house, and so since the buyer's paying the price of the house, they were paying them. So they didn't know that they could negotiate. So maybe you had a great agent, and the first day you went out, you found a house and you bought it, and they got paid $12,000, and they spent 2 hours with you. And that's what aggravated buyers. The buyer part of these lawsuits has not been resolved yet. That's still out there. We'll see if that ever comes to the front, but that's still going on. So the two main changes are buyers are going to be represented. That's a good thing because it becomes clear that the seller has an agent and the buyer has an agent. They're both professional negotiators. They're both experts in their field, and they know who their loyalties to, right? That's a good thing. The second thing is by not posting the numbers on the MLS, you're creating more work for an agent. And in some cases, what you said earlier is true. If a seller says, I don't want to pay the other guy's agent, so I'm not paying it, then the buyer has to come up with their own money. And if they don't have the money, that's a problem. So now agents who take listings are going to have to explain to a seller, listen, if you don't offer to pay the other guy's agent, they're not going to come look at your house.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting.
Right. And so if the best way to get the highest price for your house when you're selling is to get the most people who are qualified to buy it to come see it, because then they bid against each other. But if half the public on the first-time home buyer world doesn't have an extra $12,000 in our example, they're not going to go look at the house. So now prices are going to come down. So sellers are thinking, oh, now I don't have to pay the other guy's commission. I'm going to make more money. The reality is we're going to make less money because the offers are not going to be as many, and they're not going to be bidding against each other. half the demand is going to go away, and maybe more. So in the first-time home buyer world, that cooperating commission has got to stay as part of most deals. Maybe on the high-priced homes, the $1 million homes, where the buyer has more money, it won't become every deal has the commission built in. But I still think many of them it will.
Yeah, but Dean, I think it's not gonna be too much changes because right now it's like a little bit volatile with the situation, so everybody's confused. I think ultimately negotiation is gonna be happening not openly in the MLS, but definitely no agent is gonna work for free for the buyer or seller. As an agent, I can say that the seller will have an option that hey, if choose the agent who can give you the maximum money in your pocket, even you are giving away the commission to the buyer agent. So this way is going to be really, really competitive, I think.
Well, competition usually drives down price,
Yes.
right? So if now we're saying all agents are equal, I'm going to hire the person who gives me the best service for the least amount of money. That's going to drive down commission. Second, buyers are going to say, I can find my own house on Zillow. I can go to open houses. I can get my mortgage from my bank. My brother-in-law is a lawyer, and I could do this on my own and save $12,000, right? A lot of buyers are going to try to do that. And so things are not going to be the way they always were. Now, is it going to be 80% of buyers are going to do it? No, but maybe 30. Maybe 30% of buyers will try to do it on their own, in which case there's a lot less commission dollars available for the realtors. And what will happen then is a lot of realtors are going to retire or go sell vacuum cleaners. And you can also make the argument that that's a good thing, that there's too many agents and many agents are mediocre at their job and they're going to be flushed out. And all you're going to be left with are more professional, more businesslike, more experienced, more educated, more talented real estate agents, which will force them to elevate their game. And so the great agents in our world, what I call the top 10% agents, are going to be happy to see the bottom 90%, even though half of those people go sell vacuum cleaners. They'll be happy to see that because they'll only be working with other top level agents, which will make their life a lot easier. In addition, if there's less people at the table trying to eat the pizza, you get more pizza. So agents might make less per transaction, but they'll do more transactions than they would otherwise. And they'll probably do it with less stress because they're doing it with better quality professionals around.
Okay. Dean, you just touched like a few great points, like a top 10% agents. Now, if I am the seller, what I'm looking for when I'm hiring the agent, what criteria I'm looking for hiring the agent if I'm seller, and same time if I'm a buyer, what exceptional things I'm gonna get from the agent? Can you put some points, please?
I could do a lot of points, but as a general rule, the public is taught basics. I'll relate it back to the mortgage industry. People call us up and say, what's your rate on a 30-year fixed rate and how many points do you charge, right? Those are the questions that they've been, programmed to ask. There's so much more involved when you're dealing with an excellent lender where they're talking about how long are you going to need this loan? Do you plan on moving in 5 years or 20 years, or is this your forever home? Do you think that rates will come down in 2 years and you're going to refinance? Why are you taking a 30-year fixed rate? Are you concerned about cash flow? Is your job, are you going to get a promotion in 3 years where maybe taking an interest-only loan or even an adjustable rate mortgage makes more sense? So the idea that somebody would come to me with a mortgage and then they're dictating what they want is, in my mind, malpractice, because I can't prescribe what they need until I know what they're trying to accomplish. Well, on the real estate side, it's the same thing. What's a seller is programmed to say, which agent is going to get me the most and who's going to charge me the least? Those are the two questions they all really care about.
Yeah.
That is not clearly enough. One, sellers and real estate agents don't determine what the house is going to sell for. The only person who determines what it's going to sell for is the buyer,
Yeah.
because the buyer is the one writing the check. Seller could say, I want $1 million. And the buyer says, I'm not paying you more than $500,000. Well, the seller's not going to ever get their million, even though they want it. The agent could even tell them, I probably could get you the million just to get you to sign on the dotted line. But it doesn't matter. The agent's opinion, the seller's opinion, is a good starting point. But the decision of what it's going to be selling for is made by the buyer. The agent's job is not to determine the price. The agent's job is to market the home so that enough people who would be interested and qualified come to see it. So you're not hiring an agent based on a number. That's dumb. You're hiring them based on their marketing ability, their reach, their network, their ability to show you how to do little things around the house to make it look better, more presentable, look like it's worth more money when it really isn't. But what's the condition? What little repairs could you do? What coat of paint? What carpet could you rip up? Things like that. The expert advice that an agent can give you goes well beyond what the price of the house is. There's 100 other things, like the financing of the house, right? We have a program where if the seller has a decent sized mortgage, where we could assign the mortgage from the seller to the buyer, which saves the seller transfer tax, which could be a couple $1,000. At the same time, it saves the buyer on the mortgage tax. We could save them a couple of $1,000. That program, nobody on Long Island does but us, right? If you're in a first-time homebuyer neighborhood, there's certain grant programs available. There's certain other mortgage products that only go for first-time homebuyers. Sellers don't know that. Sellers don't know about loans that have renovation tied to them. They don't know. They don't even know what they don't know, right?
Yes, Dean, we are running at the time really low. We're gonna be bringing you another time for only talking the mortgage. Okay, so as we discussed today about the two topics, the not settlement and the property condition disclosure, so we really got really good information, but I think we need to keep doing the conversation about that to make it more clarity, correct?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the final rules are not going into effect until July, but I'm sure we'll be given direction by, One Key and the MLS and NAR probably before Memorial Day, so that everybody has time to implement the changes. But there'll be new forms, new disclosures, new whatever. But my advice to agents now is to elevate your game, become a better professional, create a better presentation so that people understand what you really do, so that you can get what you're worth, or otherwise you're going to become victim to people who just want to price shop you.
So what is the advice you're going to be giving for the home seller and home buyer? The only few seconds.
The home seller cannot, and buyer, should not be reading the headlines. Most of the articles that have been written so far have fallacies in them that are this long. They were written by newspaper people, not by industry experts. So they need to find somebody who has a trusted opinion that's not selfish, not thinking only of themselves, but who has a giving heart and looking to help them get from here to there. And that's where I always go to that top 10%. 90% of everybody in every industry is mediocre or worse. You can't afford that. You can get a mediocre haircut. I'm proof of that. You can't get a mediocre real estate agent. You can't get a mediocre lender, a mediocre lawyer. You need a top 10% person. If you already know one, you're blessed. If you don't know one, reach out to either of us and we'll help you find them.
Really appreciate Dean for your great contribution today, and I will see you with the next time again with the mortgage topic. Okay, thank you so much.
All right, my friend, have a good weekend.
You too. So that's all for today, dear viewers. We're going to be coming with another real estate important topic next time. With probably we're going to bring Dean for the mortgage industry. What is happening? What kind of options is available? All kind of things we're going to be talking. That's all for now. Thank you so much for joining with us. I'll come back with another time with a very interesting real estate topic. Thank you. Bye now.